What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bluegrass State of Mind, the show where three college roommates talk life, sports, and all the ridiculous things that happen in an apartment we like to refer to as Room 302. We're bringing you stories, hot takes, and the kind of late-night debates that probably should have stayed in the group chat.
So grab your headphones, sit back, and get ready for a wild ride through our past college life, sports, and everything in between. Let's get into it. This is Bluegrass State of Mind.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. We, tonight, will have a guest coming on later on. Many of you all will recognize him. We'll get to that once we get there. We do enjoy having guests on our show. We like to connect with you all as the audience and get as much activity and just building that relationship with you all as much as we can. So it's always fun. We have a fun time with that. But tonight we're going to start off with the transfer portal updates for Kentucky. Before I send it over to you guys, first thing I want to say is I just think it's completely out of control. I think that I do not want to take away the statements that I said on our last episode about me thinking that the NIL is a good thing. I still think it is. I think that as far as the brand if a person has their name on something, that they should receive money out of it. I don't take that away at all, but I just think it's really out of control right now. The state of college basketball, like I said, is dangerous because of everything that's going on. But just to give the audience, so we do know that we do have Cam Williams, who is a Tulane transfer, 6'8". He averaged 9.3 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game. He shoots 48% from the field goal and 41% from the three-point field goal. We did miss out on a heavy recruit that we was looking at in the Magu Guaf, who is the San Diego State guy. That's exactly where I just went completely. Butler came from San Diego State, so there might be a connection there for Pope and San Diego State. But that was going to be a big grab. We missed out on him. But yeah, let's get right into it. Colton, what are some of your initial thoughts on maybe just the transfer portal updates? I have some guys that I have listed. I'm going to let you list some guys. And Mason, I know you have some guys, and we all might have some guys of the same. We've not. And that's the one thing I do want to tell the audience. That's one thing I think we do a great job. We don't talk constantly about the show. What you get is pretty much what you get right now. I mean, we stand about what we're going to talk about, but I enjoy that because I don't want to make it just a script like, all right, you say this, I say that. That's not what we do. Everything is just exactly what it is right now. So go ahead, Colton.
Yeah, so the transfer portal's out of control. I mean, here's the thing, it don't even close till what is it, April like 21st or 2nd, meaning that there's still 3 weeks that people can enter the portal. And when you think about when Pope was actually hired last year, that whole transfer portal season could happen here in just a week or two. Right? And here we are, looking at it already. I will say, you just never know at this point. I mean, you had 3 guys predicting 100% for that San Diego State guy, right? And essentially it came down to, from what we heard, was that he had some injury problems. Yeah. And we were not wanting to give him the full amount he was wanting up front because of his injuries. And that San Diego State essentially agreed to give him that if he decided to come back to school, but he's going to test the NBA waters also. And so, and maybe, like Mason said, maybe Pope learned from all the injuries we had this season that maybe it's best not to give people money up front. But I mean, you never know. I mean, you hate to give them to that, and then you take like Kerr Krissa, right? I mean, we played 10 games or something like that before he's out the rest of the season.
That kind of goes back to what you had brought up last time about signing based on your play. I thought that was interesting. That goes hand in hand with what you had brought up about if you're not going to be able to play, then you will get money taken away, and that's what could have happened.
Exactly. I think that's so smart on Pope to do that with somebody that's injury prone, right? I mean, right. You'll probably miss out on some people if you try to do that to every guy. But with somebody like that who's injury prone, I mean, I think that's smart. Why go waste $2 million of our NIL and he plays 3 games or something?
Exactly. But so essentially, there had been 2 guys that were like 2 studs in the portal that so far, and really it had been the guy from UCF, the Keyshawn Hall, 6'7", elite athlete, scores all three levels, and then the Yaxel
Yaxel
Lindenberg from UAB, right? Another one that's like what is he, 6'7" or 6'9"?
He's 6'9".
6'9", and
he has
another
1 year left.
Right. So those are the two like big guys that everyone's kind of chasing. And look, here's the thing about the portal is right now everyone's sitting there saying, "Oh, Kentucky's contacted." Every team is contacting these guys, but you have to keep in mind they're essentially interviewing what they're doing, right? They have to decide whether this kid is worth it, what kind of guy are they going to be for a culture, how much are they going to be offering, are they injury prone? And so just because they contact, but you see that all over the internet, you're like, oh, Kentucky has reached out. That doesn't necessarily mean we're wanting him. But at the same time, there's guys that you should think that we should want, right? We talked about that guy from Georgia. The last podcast, the
Silas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
before you get on to Silas, though, let's let them know why the Yaxel Lindenberg is heavily wanted. He's the 2-time reigning player of the year in his league, and he averages 17 points per game, 11.5 rebounds a game, shoots 52% from the field goal, 30. I mean, he's a dude. I mean, not from the guards perspective, but like you said, everybody's wanting him.
Yeah, everyone is. And look, it's going to come down to a bidding war. And maybe we haven't took a chance on some of these guys because maybe we're deciding that we are going to drop the bag on this guy. But at the same time, that hasn't necessarily shown to be Pope's style. So it kind of worries me also that this is the kind of guy that's going to be like, what was that from you that he decided to go to UCLA, Donovan Dent, that won it.
Yeah.
He wanted $3 million. Right? This guy, maybe wanting the same thing, and we may just not be willing to give it to him. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes because I like him, but to me, I want to go. We need a veteran guard, and there's not a whole lot of them in the portal right now. Guards and shooters are not in the portal at the moment. So to me, your best chance is to go get some stretch bigs, like some 6'9", 6'8" guys that can, like we brought in that guy from Tulane. He shoots 40% from the three. Those type of guys right now. What's the guy from Robert Morris?
Alvaro
yeah, and that's what's like. That there's two guys that we are also looking at. That's one of the other guys.
He's one of my top targets, and to me, I don't know that we're looking at this one anymore. But the one I would like the shooter from Sam Houston State, Wilkerson. I think he reminds me a lot of like a Chaz Lanier from Tennessee.
Lamar Wilkerson, right?
Right. Yeah. I think he reminds me a lot of a Chaz Lanier, a guy that can roll off of screens and shoot, and very, very athletic. So to me, those are two guys that I'm kind of looking at right now outside of the Yaxel. I mean, I think he's the number one that everyone's wanting right now, but those are two others that I think you would be really good getting because they could bring a stretch like shooting game to you, but a little athleticism and a matchup problem. Like Carr become a matchup problem for a lot of teams this year because of his ability to shoot the three a little bit, go inside. I think that guy for Robert Morris could be a matchup problem. And so those are two guys I'm looking at right now for sure.
Yeah, that guy from Robert Morris, he had when they played Alabama, I mean, that was a close game, for a long time. He had 15-10 against Alabama in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I think he's a stud. I think he's going to fit perfect in Pope's system.
Mason, I want you to talk a little bit because I know you've been hit. There's just some guys that we've sent that we really liked. And I want you to talk a little bit about the Silas guy from Georgia. I know you really enjoy his game.
Yeah, I watched about an 8-minute clip of him on YouTube one night, late one night that I found on X. And I think he would have been a good fit. He's very athletic, both ends of the floor. I talked a little bit about it on our last episode. He gets downhill. He can create his own shot. I think he needs to work on his shot a little bit. But, I mean, we pretty much I think he's signed or he's a lock to UConn now. I don't know if he's signed yet, but he's pretty much a lock there. I really think, and I just want to throw this out here for people, like, you see a bunch of people on X and Facebook and whatever else saying, oh, we're whiffing on everybody. I don't think that's the case. Like you said, Colton, I mean, yes, we're reaching out to these kids, but we went and visited him, right? I know we went and visited him. Donovan Dent, I don't know if we even visited with him. I know we were in the mix. We probably weren't willing to pay that much. That's fine. But all these other guys, they're like, oh, Louisville signing all these people, and we're whiffing on all these people. I mean, I think we're really heavy right now on Yaxel and the guy from Robert Morris, which we haven't been able to visit him because he's still in Spain. But other than Damari and maybe Dent, I don't think we've really whiffed on anybody yet. I don't think we've really went heavy on anybody yet that is committed somewhere else.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me though, because you think Mark Pope, he is a very, I'm not saying other coaches aren't sophisticated and like deep thinkers, but it seems as if like Pope he goes about it a little bit different. And there's a lot of things that we don't know. And we're just judging it based on, like you said, Louisville. Oh, well, Pat Kelsey, he seems the type to jump the gun, and he's probably excited right now, and he's got some guys coming in, and they've already. But I mean, I'll say this from my perspective. I appreciate the job that Mark Pope done this much more, because I really didn't realize how late to the game that Mark Pope truly was in the transfer portal and the guys that he got. I mean, I saw something is either today or yesterday about like the ranks of the guys that we brought in, and they weren't that great. So to do what he done with the guys he had, job well done. And that also goes to say that you don't necessarily maybe have to have top guys. It's a system. Whatever
How it
fits in
fits.
your system. Exactly.
Exactly. That's my biggest thing right now. Like, I just see everybody freaking out. Oh, we haven't got anybody yet. We got one guy from Tulane. We haven't got any of these top guys. The highest ranked, transfer we got last year was Brandon Garrison. He didn't even start for us. I mean, he played spot minutes, rotation minutes for us, and everybody's just freaking out right now. There's so long until the transfer portal ends. I trust Mark Pope. Yes, we would like to have some of these studs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with what he did last year, with what he got in the portal, I think we all just need to trust what he's doing. He has a system. He knows what fits his system. And then if we don't have a successful season, or if we start off the season a little rocky, then we can start talking. But let's just see who he can pull in here at the end and go from there, because I think we're going to get this Yaxel kid if he doesn't go to the NBA. I really do. I know I'm kind of reading and hearing, it's between us and Michigan right now. Michigan got that forward from Illinois, I think, Morez Johnson. So I think that could maybe tip the ball towards us a little bit. We'll see what happens, but let's just all be patient and kind of trust.
There is
Hope.
one other guy that I do want to bring in that I think to light that I was reading yesterday about
Pierre.
Kentucky. No, it's not him, but I think that this guy would fit in Pope's system, and it's the best shooter available right now, from my understanding, is the guy from Monmouth, Abdi Bashir. He's a 6'7" guy. He averaged 20 points per game. He shoots 38% from the field goal. 38% from the 3-point land, and he was the nation's leader in 3-point shooting last season with 127 makes. And he's 6'7". So that would be a real, like, your stretch 3-4 guy. That's kind of who we're going after. I mean, you look at the guys: Yaxel, 6'9", Alvaro 6'9".
Cam Williams was 6'8", right?
Cam Williams 6. Silas Demary 6'5". I mean, we're not really heavily targeting guards right now, and there might be somebody that we don't know about that Pope's has coming in. I mean, I don't know, and obviously you still have St. John's RJ Lewis. I don't know necessarily that that's a guy for Pope. And has he committed anywhere? I don't think he has. Has he?
He had. I think he's going to test the water. I haven't either. Like, I think I saw. Didn't like Rick Pitino, like, as soon as he decided to put his name in the he didn't say like he's done great. Like, he said he'll be a great NBA player, as if like he was going to the draft. Yep. So like that may be where he's going, and it's not a strong draft. So like RJ Lewis he's probably a first rounder, I would think.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, with his athleticism. Did y'all know, like, I was thinking about this. I hadn't thought about it again until y'all mentioned Michigan and the running for that Yaxel. But like the second richest person in the world, like, his wife, like, went to Michigan. And so I didn't think nothing of it, but then I was reading all the football stuff. So they got the
NIL stuff, all the money.
Bryce Underwood, he was committed to LSU, number one quarterback. in the country this coming
Yeah, I
in
saw that.
season.
And
And
went
he
to
flipped
Michigan.
his commission. They gave him $12 million a year.
Golly.
And because they got tired, like obviously they were like, we're not losing like they had the big whole thing with Ohio State and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And essentially like Michigan was down this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they come in and there was like, his wife was an alumni at Michigan. And so now who knows what their NIL is?
$12 million?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I
that's
want to
fine.
bring
It's
up one
just out
more.
of control. I mean, like it is just.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one more.
Okay,
that
go for
that
it.
Jerron Pierre Jr.
Yeah.
Where's he from?
Jacksonville State.
Yeah. Have y'all seen the videos? I mean, he's so
Yeah.
athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude
That's
who
an
can just go
athlete
get
that
a
we could have.
bucket.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that would help us a lot. Just having him, be able to be that athletic, go get a bucket, get down the lane and create. So,
Yeah.
I think that's another one that I'm kind of high on right now. Obviously Yaxel and then that guy from Robert Morris.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's plenty, like you said, there's plenty of time. There's a lot going on. I mean, we're not even done with the college basketball season. I'm sure it will heat up right after Monday. I expect by next weekend there to be a lot of movement and a lot of for sure's, like this guy's going here, and we might know a little bit more about our roster heading into next season. But as far as this season goes, our next segment, we do want to talk about something that I sent to the guys, and it was just interesting. So, on Mark Pope's on his radio show that following on Mondays, he made the comment, and I quote, he said, "The entire team stayed up until 6 a.m. in the hotel room following their last game of the season, just reminiscing and telling stories from the year." And I had sent that to Mason and Colton just because I thought I just wanted to hear their thoughts on it. So, Mason, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Then Colton, share yours.
So I know, you originally said, Dylan, I'd much rather be playing. I think we all would. I think Pope would too. I do think that that's kind of a message from Pope to other players about the kind of culture and things he wants to create here at Kentucky, kind of people he wants to have in his program. And I mean, I think that's awesome. I do think this team grew really close, and it's not something that you see all the time, which was really cool to see. We've seen a lot of them post afterwards. The comments that Lamont Butler and Andrew Carr made. I think Pope did a great job with how late everything kind of transpired last year and bringing this team together as quickly as he did. With that being said, Dylan, like you said, we all would have loved to have been playing, right? We would have loved to have been playing last weekend and into this weekend in the Final Four here. But I think that just speaks a lot about what Pope truly wants, and there's some other things that I'll talk about here in a minute that I think we've talked about. We wish he would do better, but I think this is gonna lead to him getting the type of players he wants in his system. He wants these guys who are going to buy in, treat it like a family. He doesn't want these guys who are just going to go out there and try to get their own every possession and pout if they don't get their way. He's trying to create that culture and system here, and I think that was really part of that, putting that message out there going into this offseason. So that's kind of my initial take on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of my initial take for the most part. I like the culture he's being. I love the positivity. I love the passion that he has. I love the passion that he instills or he's going to try to instill in the players that he brings in, like the love for Big Blue Nation, like the love for playing for the University of Kentucky. Like I do love all that, and I think he's done that part of the job fantastic since he's took over. Like Dylan said the last episode, he gets it in that way, right? He gets it. But I'm going to come at it from the other side also. I also believe that some of this stuff is being used as a failsafe amongst not just Pope, but the fan base too, right? Because I think he's saying all these things, right? Oh yeah, we cared really, it meant a lot to us. We know, and we enjoy seeing that. But when we got into that conversation about like how Cal would say before the tournament, oh, this didn't matter, right? And Pope essentially was like, we were up till 6 in the morning talking about how much it mattered. At the end of the day, both teams lost in the Sweet 16. One blew a big lead. One was never in the game, right? And at the end of the day, it didn't really matter what you said. And I think that's where I come at it is like, I love seeing those things. I know he cares. And that, like, I hope those things continue. But I do think a lot of people are like, you see people take those comments and say, it's just nice to have a coach that cares like this. It's just nice to look, give me a coach that goes to a Final Four and says, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Over a coach that says, I care and losing the Sweet 16. I think Pope done a great job this year. What I'm just talking about referring to is going forward. Like, those comments are great, but I feel like they're also trying to be a fail-safe for what if we don't get past the Sweet 16 next year? Is it just going to be okay to say, well, we had a nice long heart-to-heart afterwards? Like, I mean, that's great, but I think that stuff, you saw it in the first season, all season long. Those type of comments, and everyone love it, fall in love with Pope, which I do too. I love him. But I think you're going to see those same people who are loving it kind of go away from it unless you produce, right? Big Blue Nations, I mean, it's a crazy, crazy fan base. Right? They're going to love you for the moment, but
Yeah. I think it's just like, and I also want, like, me and Colton and Mason all agree, like, we're not taking anything away from Mark Pope.
right,
And that's not what we're doing at all. But at the same time, I think it's just hard for us because it's just completely opposite of what we've been used to. Like, Calipari and Pope are the same, but not really at all. Like, they make the comments are just completely 180. Like, just that's I could not sit there and imagine Cal saying on the post game or after his radio show when he was at, we set up all night and we talked at and 6 in the morning reminiscing about all, like Pope said, like, and that's great. And I honestly think that that's just who Mark Pope is. He's just that down to earth guy. And he, like I said, he gets it. But I'm right there with you, Colton. Like, that's okay right now. But next year, if you say anything like that, like, who cares? Like, we've
right,
got, like, I'm ready.
right,
I'd rather be, like I said in the message, I'd rather have my guys in bed at a hotel room or recovering and talking about the next game and going to bed at midnight rather than staying up. And there's nothing wrong with what he's saying. That's not what we're saying. It's just, it's just eye opening. It's just something to talk about because, like, we're not used to seeing that. And, I hope that we don't come used to seeing that, because I want our guys to be playing in the Final Four. So that's just my initial thoughts on that. Mason, I know you was about to say something. Go ahead.
So I know what if this situation happens again? Would you rather hear this or hear him say something else? And what would you rather hear him say?
Honestly, I'd rather not hear him say anything about that. I truly
yeah,
wouldn't. I just want to hear
I
comments
agree.
about the game. I don't want to hear anything about my guys. We set up and we talked about the stories and how much fun we had all season because at that point the season's over. I don't
Yeah,
care.
I know that, but he'd already talked about the game. This is the day after, and they're asking him more
Yeah.
questions about how the
No,
team reacted that night.
Well,
I know, but
I
you're
mean,
asking me if it were to
it's one of
happen
those.
again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm like with Dylan. To me, it's one of those where if it happens again next year, all I want to just hear is that I love these kids and I wish them the best. But now it's time for next season. We got whooped. That's it. Like we got whooped. There's no other talking about it. We got
But
beat.
here's another side to my thing too, which I feel like I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here as well. I feel like Pope knows how crazy this fan base is, right? And I feel like part of that is him trying to protect those players, saying like, "Hey, they cared, they're upset, they tried, they didn't get it done, they understand that." But I mean, I get where y'all are coming from, but at the same time, I feel like Pope's just trying to do some things to try to help smooth over some of those feelings and show that team really cared, even though they might not have gotten the job done.
Right. And that's what my point was when we had that argument earlier where y'all talked about a lot of those comments for Cal being fail safes in case they don't succeed. Pope does the same thing, but yeah, how many times would Cal sit there and say, oh, like how many times would he sit there and say, we didn't have enough time, like these are freshmen, we didn't have all this stuff. Like he's trying to take that off of the players the same way that Pope is sitting there saying, man, this don't blame them for not showing up in this game. They did care.
I
And that's
get
what he's
that.
doing, right? And that's essentially what Cal is doing too. You just like to hear Pope's side of it a little bit better because it sounds more emotional or heartfelt.
Well,
But I mean, at
Pope.
the end of the day, like I said, it don't matter if the same result is the same
Yeah,
result.
no, I agree. We all want to win, yes. But back to that thing, like Cal would do these fail safes before it even happened. And like in this situation, I'm not trying to get into the Cal Pope thing at
Right.
all, but I'm just saying, I just feel like part of that is just really truly the person that Pope is. I don't think he's trying to, and we talked about this a little bit. I don't think he's trying to do everything Cal didn't. I just think this is truly the type of person Pope is. I mean, he played at Kentucky, he gets it, he knows how it is. So I really just think he wants to win more than every one of us, right? We can tell he loves
Right.
Kentucky. And I think that's really just part of who Pope is and kind of the culture that he created. And he was just trying to, I guess, share
Yeah.
that with
No,
Big Blue Nation.
but I think there's a big difference though in him making those statements now than it was if you asked again if it were to happen again. Like right
Oh, I
now,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
that I mean I think
Right.
that's just him just
Yeah.
being down to earth and he loved his
Yeah.
first season and the guys they
Yeah.
brought in. But if it were to happen again 365 days away from whenever he did that on Monday, then yes, it's a completely different conversation.
Oh,
Like
you'll hear me saying the same thing y'all are.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I think that it's like I don't care, and that's
Right.
I think that that's what it comes down to. But regardless, it was a fun season. We know that the guys cared, and it just like I said previously at the beginning of this episode, like it makes you appreciate like these guys. They truly did build something special because we didn't have any returning people coming who had any points, rebound, like nothing. Like I mean, we had nothing returning. So for them to all come from different schools and to come together to build a Sweet 16 was impressive. So uh, let's get on to our next segment. We recently, this past week, was able to witness the McDonald's All American game. Kentucky does have a guy by the name of Malachi Moreno, who is also a Kentucky boy. He plays at where
Great Crossing.
Great Crossing, yes, and they did win the state championship.
Yep.
I did. Did y'all see where they won it on Saturday night, then had to fly,
He flew out immediately to the
flew out
game.
immediately,
Yeah.
had to practice Sunday, and then they
Yeah.
had like to get ready for everything. I
Scrimmage
thought that was
Monday.
pretty cool. I mean, he
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was still buzzing about winning the state
Right.
championship. That'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool. But it doesn't matter. Either one of y'all want to talk a little bit about him?
Yeah. I'll say this. So I watched a little bit here. I do think he has a little bit more of a strength to him than people think. I think he's like you talked, Dylan. He does move in like a stiff way. He's not very
He's very stiff
like
looking.
he's not very loose or very smooth with a lot of his movements, quick with a lot of his movements. But he has a different like strength that's like quietly, that he's not easy to move a lot. And I think that that's something he can build off of. He did step out, hit a three during that McDonald's All American game. I don't know how much he really does that, or else how loose he was just playing because it's the McDonald's All American
It
game.
probably never had to in high school, let's be
Right,
honest.
exactly. I mean, when you're that size in Kentucky, right? I mean, everything comes a lot easier. But I will say it's hard for me to tell because I've looked at him the whole time being a definite backup coming into this season, and I still think he's going to be, if not even like maybe like the third big man off the bench. Like he'll play some, but even like a third big man, if you bring in one other guy that will go in front of Garrison, if Garrison stays, then like Moreno would be like the third guy, or maybe you play two of them at the same time if you have 3 7-footers. But I just think it's funny because how much like him and Lewis have all of a sudden got talked about in the last little bit after a few of these portal guys didn't come to Kentucky, right? Like
Yeah.
it's weird. People were kind of like, "Oh yeah, we got Moreno," but I think everyone was like really heavy on the portal, and we've missed a few of these guys, and now everyone's like, everyone's sleeping on Lewis, everyone's sleeping on Moreno, and I think that's just a fan base trying to stay positive, trying to hype it up, and which is good. I mean, you want to
Yeah.
do that for your own players you're bringing in. The fan base, keep it positive. You don't want to get negative. That's part of the last few years why it was so rough to get on, online and see everything negative. So it is nice to kind of see those type of comments, but it'll be interesting. I think he's one that's definitely going to be a project. We'll see how much he develops.
Yeah. The one thing, and this is nothing about Moreno at all. It's just in general, bigs. I think looking at a big man in high school is so hard. It's so much harder than guard play because whenever you take Moreno, who is a 7-footer, he doesn't see 7-footers at all on a nightly basis, not even on a monthly basis. Whenever he's playing in college, but especially if you're not
Maybe
like
all
on one of
year.
the, yeah, maybe all year. If you're not playing on one of the academies like
Like the prep schools,
IMG or the prep school stuff, like you don't see that size. So like when he plays, I mean his stats are dominant. I mean like you that's because he's so much taller. That's not taking anything away from him. It's just the level of competition. So that's something that it's really hard for the eye test to look at whenever you're talking about in high school basketball. But Mason, go ahead on your thoughts. I know you watched a lot of the All-American game. Kind of talk a little bit more about him if you want.
Yeah, so as far as Moreno goes, I was not very high on him before I watched the McDonald's All-American scrimmage and the McDonald's All-American game. I didn't think he was going to play a lick for us this year. I thought he was a stick and weak and, wasn't going to be able to hold his own. And I think a lot of that has to come back, to me watching him play high school in Kentucky, right? I mean, it looked like he wasn't even trying out there, and he was, scoring 20 points and getting 15 rebounds a game. And I thought that was all just due to his size. But after watching, so I watched the scrimmage on YouTube. I watched some of it. I didn't get to watch all of it, but I watched some of that scrimmage, and then I also watched the McDonald's All American game. And I saw a lot of people talking on X about his performance at the scrimmage, how he played really well. I think he had double digit rebounds and points. He only played 14, 15 minutes in that scrimmage, but a lot of people were impressed, and I think that was the biggest thing with me. Like I don't think he's our starter this year at all. But I do think, towards the end of the season, if he develops some, like you said, Dylan and Cole, one of my concerns was during that McDonald's All American game, and I know it's kind of like an all-star game, but it just seemed at times like other guys were playing harder than him, beating him up and down the floor. Different things that I noticed. He was the last one down the floor a couple times. His big beat him down the floor and had a dunk, after they had a made basket or something. So a couple of those things stood out to me. But after watching him, obviously, I think he can be a presence defensively with his length and his ability to block shots. He had several block shots the other night, altering shots. I do think he needs to get out of the habit of going after everything, because there were a couple times where he went after a shot and gave up an offensive rebound to his guy on the other side of the rim, which is a little bit of a concern. But watching him offensively, the way that he would move some of those bigs and he was able to finish with both hands, I think he has potential. Again, 2 to 3 years down the road, I think he could be a great center for us. This year, I think he's just a spot minute, rotational minutes. I don't want him to be our starter, but I do see. I'm glad we got him, because I think here in a couple of years, if Pope can keep him in the system, he'll be a good college basketball player.
Yeah. Well, you say something very interesting too that I think of when you say in 2 to 3 years. I mean, in 2 to 3 years though, if he's not playing and producing, I mean, who knows? He might be out of there. Like that's the world. That's the state we live in now.
Right?
Like so, like you're always like, oh, this guy will be like a great 3-year star. Like, I mean, you're seeing guys who have started and played multiple minutes, and they're out of there. I mean, that it's crazy. And so for me, I watched a little bit of the McDonald's All American game, and so whenever for the people who have not actually seen Malachi play any, he does not wow you with his offensive game, his athleticism. I mean, like Colton said, I sent him. He's very stiff, and the way that he runs, he just his moves. My biggest concern is like, is he going to be able to produce enough offense to stay in the game? I think he's a really good rim protector. I do. He a lot of guards when in that game when they were going, he kind of makes them move their shots to where it's not comfortable for them, which is always good to have. But some systems all you do need is a rim protector because you have so much other offensive weapons, and that's what you need for Pope's offense coming forward or for the future. I don't know necessarily that's what we need. I think back to this year. Amari Williams. Amari Williams didn't have an offensive game. He played bully ball, and that was about it. And he would have double-digit points, but it was not because of his inside post moves at all. It came from scrap points. And you talk about hustle, Mason. So how's he going to get his points if he's not getting that scrap points by hustling? So just a couple of little things here and there with that. That's kind of my thoughts on that. But I also do like to see an in-state kid coming to Kentucky. But we'll we'll never know until next year. I mean, I do not see him coming in right away and making a lot of noise. I don't. He'll get a couple minutes here and there, but I mean he could. You never know. Hope for the best though. So, any more thoughts about that?
Nope.
All right. Well, I have just informed our guest to hop on here, so hopefully he is logging on. He'll be here. So whenever he does hop on here, you will see who it is. But I'm just going to go ahead and tell you who it is. Maybe if he'll hop on here. There he is. Oh man.
Oh,
Wait, I put a
no.
jersey
There he
on.
is. Oh, he's got a jersey on.
Oh,
All right. I
If
think
that's a Leitner jersey, kick him out.
oh yeah, no, that's not happening.
All right, Tyler, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Tyler?
No,
I
they
can't
can't.
hear him.
They can't.
Technical difficulties.
Technical
There we go.
difficulties.
Oh.
Well, go ahead and give a little intro, Colton, for the audience about who Tyler is. I told him to tell us his
There we go.
backstory. Oh, wait,
Okay.
there he is. Oh,
Okay.
here we
I
are.
don't know what was going on there to start out, but yeah.
Okay, all
Got
right.
it figured
Well,
out now. So
for those who are not watching our actual feed, we have Mr. Tyler Glass with us this evening. Tyler, go ahead and kind of give us a little lowdown of because what you're going to be talking to us is very important. We've brought you in for a golf episode and then also to talk a little bit about Duke. And I know some of our viewers out there are like, Duke, what in the world? Fellas, I went ahead and told Tyler to tell us about that. And also, I want him to tell how in the world he came about to be a Duke fan. Because, living in
I was
Kentucky,
gonna ask that.
you don't really see that happen. Now, like Tennessee, you get it. I mean, we're out on the borderline, but Duke, out of all schools.
Yeah.
So give us a little intro for yourself, buddy.
okay, so well, first off, as far as the becoming the Duke fan thing, I'm not a bandwagon. Okay, so the way it kind of happened, I'm kind of I don't have exact details, but my dad used to live in Virginia, and my grandpa was working for a company, and he would kind of travel around that side of the country, and he was around Durham a lot. And my dad was younger when this was going on. He was probably, like 10, 11. And then this was during the early 90s. So this is when Leitner and all of them were there. And so he was going to Durham a lot. And my dad and Colin, my uncle, went to the campus. And they just kind of fell in love with him after that. And when they moved back to Kentucky, the fandom for Duke followed. And then, of course, I was raised up as a Duke fan. So I kind of was just from day one, I was told to be a Duke fan pretty much. And I've enjoyed every second of it. So
I'm sure you have.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, for as far as golf, because we will get to a little bit of Duke, but before we get to Duke, though, we're going to talk a little bit of golf. So, kind of tell the audience about your history of golf, because I know that you.
Yeah, I mean, golf's a big part of my life. Of course, right now I'm working as the head club pro at our country club here, Hidden Hills Country Club in Tompkinsville, and I kind of have always grown up around golf. Along with Duke, my dad was also a huge golfer, so I grew up at the country club here, always playing. Ever since I was a kid, getting lessons as long as I can remember, I was playing golf, and I knew, coming out of high school, that it was something that I would want to do. So I got into sport management at first, and then I kind of discovered this PGA program I'm currently in. And I'm on that pathway to become a full club pro. So, yeah, I've just kind of enjoyed every second of working out there and running the tournaments, meeting a lot of people. It's just something that I love to do.
Yeah. And not only was your dad a golfer, he was a very good golfer.
Yeah.
We need to add that in there. So, but well, let's get what we're going to talk about right now is we're going to talk about the TGL. It was its first year. It was very strong in attendance as far as not only only the players but also the viewership. I was took back of kind of how the audience kept coming back. Because that was something that a lot of people were looking at. Like, is this going to be able to? Is it going to be good or not? Obviously, whenever Tiger's on, people are going to watch, but how's it going to do without Tiger, or Rory? But just to talk about the players, so there was out of the top 15 players in the world, 11 of the top 15 players of the world played in the TGL. So that was very impressive. And then you had the Atlanta Drive, the team based out of Atlanta, who ended up winning it all, beating New York Golf Club in 4-3 to solidify the SoFi Cup. So, Colton, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Tyler, Mason. We'll hit you last. But Colton, kind of talk a little bit about your thoughts on the first full season of TGL. How much did you enjoy it? What were some maybe highlights of it? What could they improve if you maybe see anything? But take it as you will.
Yeah. So, I thought it was a big success, especially given the time of year it was. Like, it came on essentially right after or as, football season ended, right? Monday Night Football was ending, and so all of a sudden you didn't have anything to watch on Monday or Tuesday nights a lot, right? College basketball kind of picked up on some of those nights, but essentially, it was one of the only things that you could really turn on and watch sports-wise. And so I thought they planned that out perfect as far as the time of year to do it. And so I thought it was a big success. I was like you, Dylan. I don't know how I was going to enjoy simulator golf because it can get a little boring watching at times. But whenever Tiger's on, everyone's going to watch. It don't matter what he's doing, playing putt putt or what it is, but you're going to watch Tiger. But what it became is you got to you got to dive in deep to some of these personalities of some of these players, right? Like how much of fun like Billy Horschel all of a sudden was, like that personality. And you knew how JT was getting to watch him in the Ryder Cup. And what you got to see is even like someone like Cantley, who you don't see express any emotion at all. And not that he expresses a lot here, but you get to talk to him more. And all of a sudden these guys, they seem all out on the course, they're so serious. Well, they were taking this serious. They were very competitive, but you got to also talk and see how much they were really trying to compete during this. And to me, you had the top players in the world. There's future growth there because we talked about they have like a Dallas investment group that's trying to get a team together. There's a lot of guys from Dallas, Scotty, Tom Kim, Willie Z, those type of guys, the Texas crew. So like you have potential for building more teams, getting more stars in here. If they combine the leagues, imagine a Bryson DeChambeau on here on a one night or something like that. So I think there's a lot of growth. What I would want to see more of is they did it like halfway through the season. They started making they really started using the hammer, what they had the hammer in the right way to where it really made a difference those last two matches. Where like all of a sudden you had a 10 or 12 footer that really had the chance to win, like to swing the entire match. And those are pressure moments for those guys too, even if they're not in golf tournaments, they're feeling that pressure. That's what fans want to see is a big time moments. And so I think if you continue to find little ways to apply real pressure to these guys during that, to see the competitive side, see the expression when Billy Horschel makes the putt to flip the match, seeing those type of things, if you can create, and I don't know how you do it exactly, but little things could possibly create those type of moments, then it makes for good TV. So I think it's a big success first year. I think it'll grow at least for another couple years. Then you'll see how it reacts. But I think it was a good first year.
Tyler, what was your thoughts on it?
Of course, whenever it first started, I didn't necessarily watch it right at the beginning, but I did start to notice it some because it would come on before ball games and it would run over, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is TGL. So that's how I kind of got introduced to it. But then I started sitting down and watching it some, and I do enjoy it, and I think that it's a really good concept because you think about like a normal golf tournament, which is what people would have been watching. It's kind of hard to watch a golf tournament sometimes when you think about it because It'll come on Thursday. A lot of people are at work. They're playing through the middle of the day. Same thing for Friday. And then, they're on Saturday and Sunday. People got church on Sundays, and then Saturdays, people have things to do. Sometimes they don't always catch the tournaments. But, everyone, like good golf fans, they'll tune into the bigger like majors and stuff like that, and those other tournaments. But a lot of people, it's not as easy as it is now with the TGL where you can just sit down, flip through ESPN at night after work, and then, hey, look, TGL's on. It's easy, it's accessible to watch. But for like the first year, I think the idea and the concept of it was great, and it is very entertaining. And, just kind of for the future of it, one thing that I really thought that it needed was some more teams. They have 6 teams. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 6. Yeah, I'd like to see that get to like 10, 12 teams, because you're talking about right now you've got 6 teams, so you've got 18 golfers. There's a lot of great golfers out there and personalities that you could throw on there. And kind of along with that, one other thing that I thought would be kind of a neat idea, and, this is kind of where they have to decide too with the TGL. Are you wanting to go down more of a serious competitive golf pathway, or trying to get entertainment and views? Because if you're going down that entertainment side, I think that something that would be neat is if you got some of these celebrity golfers on these teams. Maybe you throw on.
Are you talking about?
I did.
Are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are you talking about celebrities as far as like other sports? Or are you talking about also like YouTube golfers as well?
Well, you could go YouTube golfers. You could go like other celebrities that play sport, like Tom Brady, for example. I know Aaron Rodgers.
That would be very interesting. That would grab the audience that probably
Steph Curry.
Tune in.
Yep, Steph's one. Yeah. And then you've got the YouTube golfers too, like Grant Horvat and Garrett Clark, people like that. But if you start incorporating these celebrities, you're going to start drawing a lot of eyes. Because the golf fans, true golf fans, they'll tune into TGL. But you start putting celebrities on there, then you're going to start drawing a lot more attention. Yeah, and they don't have to be on the team, for the full match. You could have them come in for like a 3-hole stretch or something, something like that. And they could be a part of the team in that way. But I think that would be something.
I didn't even think about that, but that would be. I mean, and you also could, if you wanted to. I mean, they could just do. I mean, didn't like Tony Finau do like a day contract where he just played one event? I mean, so if you wanted to, you could do like a highlight of it. It could be. You could even do like a celebrity week. Like each team like have a celebrity just for that week. I don't know, but yeah, that's a good idea. Mason, what was your thoughts on TGL?
Yeah, kind of tying into that, I don't know if y'all saw, but some of those like YouTube golfers, like Good, they got to get in there and hit some shots and play around in there and stuff, So I think that would be a cool idea to get those guys, kind of involved and bring some new entertainment to it. As far as my takes go, I really enjoyed it as well. I didn't tune in every week, and that's kind of, I guess, one thing that I say would change. Like Colton said, it was on like a Tuesday night, maybe Kentucky was playing at the same time. I'm obviously going to watch Kentucky, right? So I think it would be good for them if they could have a designated night, right, where there's not a whole lot of college basketball on after football's ended. Have some designated night where that's kind of like the key premier, sport that's on that night, where they could have more people locked in and tuned into it. I don't know what day that would be, obviously, and all that goes with contracts and things, but I think that would benefit them greatly. Another thing I really like that I'd like to see them do some more of, some of the holes were really cool. The risk reward of them, I think that's cool to see some of these players, take that on and how they approach it. And then obviously, just getting to see the personalities up close and how they all interact together. It's kind of like us out there on the golf course, just joking around and, shooting the crap and saying, oh, you're going to miss this or you're going to make that, just joking around, making it fun. So that was cool to see as well. As far as like new things to try, I like the celebrity thing. I think they should do more of like some of the risk reward holes. I think that would be cool. I also think it would be cool, and I don't know how they would do this, but like let all the teams, and this is just, we have fun whenever we all do scrambles. Maybe just do it like one week, have the whole team do a scramble and just see what they can shoot. I think that'd be fun to see how low those guys could go, and to see how differently they approach it, knowing, okay, I got a good ball out there. I'm really going to take the risk on this one. So I think that'd be cool too if they just threw that in, maybe 1 week, and you have the different teams match up and just see that as like, maybe it's an off week. It doesn't count as points, but I think it'd be fun entertainment to watch those guys do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into it too much because I agree with everything that you three have said. I thought it was very entertaining. It was good for it approached maybe or it was intriguing maybe for a different crowd. Is and I think Tyler, you made good points about how sometimes it is actually hard to watch a golf tournament because it's throughout the whole day, and this is you can sit down at night after maybe if you have kids, you can put them to bed and put that on. Overall, I think it was a great success for its first season. But now let's get into our heavy topic for tonight. Because it's not often that you get to actually talk to a Duke fan. I only know two personally, like actually
Yeah.
like on a good level. I know two people who are Duke fans. Um, so I have a question, and then I know maybe they might have a couple questions. But let's go.
Okay.
So we have the Final Four. Duke's going to be playing Houston. I have not. I mean, I've watched Duke throughout the year, but I'm not going to sit here
Mhm.
and say I've watched them avidly, like I know you have. Tyler, what worry because Duke, they're a very good team. They're playing some of their best basketball, I think, based on what I have seen. Everything's clicking. They've not necessarily had any trouble thus far into the tournament. But what is one thing that worries you about this Duke team? If you had to pick one thing, what's one thing heading into Houston that you're like, okay, if we were to lose or have a lot of issues or trouble, what would be the one thing that maybe worries you?
The thing that would probably worry me the most, of course, I would say two things. One is if we get into a really tight game scenario, we've been in a lot of blowouts this year. Of course, y'all know as well as I do, the ACC is down from what it usually is. And even in the tournament so far, I mean, we've had a lot of blowouts. There was a little game pressure on us in Arizona, but, other than that game, everything's been a blowout. There's not been really any tight, games. And when you look back at it, what tight games have we played in? We've won a
Kentucky and
couple of
Clemson.
them. Yep, Kentucky, Clemson, Kansas. One tight one that we won was Auburn, but when you
Yes, I
look
do. Yeah.
back into November, of course, that is one thing I will say. Since November, this team has gotten so much better. And usually I say that sometimes with Duke teams, but like you can truly see it when I look at and watch that game in November, against Kentucky, Kansas versus now. They've just grown tremendously, especially defensively and as a group. And, we're starting different guys, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, we haven't really been in a tight game scenario. And, our biggest weaknesses so far have come out in those tighter games. We hadn't necessarily had that many games to go to someone with the last possession. Even in the Kentucky game, we had Flagg. He turned it over there. And then in Kansas, same thing. But after that, there really hasn't been any tight games to go to Flagg. Clemson, but we were kind of trailing after towards the end of that game. So that would kind of worry me. And another thing that would worry me as well is probably the physicality of Houston, because the last game we lost was Clemson. And in that Clemson game, it was one of the most physical games we played in all year. And after the game was over, Brownell said, he was like, hey, our game plan was to out physical Duke. We were going to get physical, get up in them. And that's what they did. And they mucked up the game and, they made it hard on us. Um, and I've heard people say that we have a physical team, but, those are probably my two biggest worries going into this game.
Yeah. Colton, you have anything? Because I have some other things, but I want to open it up to you and Mason about what y'all can elaborate on that based on your thoughts on what he said. If you agree, disagree, I mean, go ahead. I mean,
Yeah, no, I agree with him on as far as watching Duke grow because we beat Duke back in the Champions Classic, but what have I said the whole year after that game? I mean, y'all have
what
heard
have
me
we
say it
all said?
that
I
we
agree.
felt like Duke was better than us in that game. We all felt that. We won that game, but we felt like Duke controlled it 85% of the game, and then they did what we had done in the past, where the freshmen made a few of those. They were shooting early shots, not good shots. They kind of just let us hang around, and then we kind of took advantage with their experience and their older guys in an early game with a bunch of freshmen on the court. And so I agree. I think Duke has matured. I guess my question would be, Tyler, which I mean, like I said, I've watched Duke here and there too, but not a ton. What would be what do you feel like are the best strengths of this team? What's your advantages going into this game against Houston?
Specifically against Houston, I think the one glaring thing is size. We're so much bigger than this Houston team. I think they start like a 6'2", 6'3", 6'3", and then they go 2'6'8" guys. And right now we're starting 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'9", and 7'2", and then the guys we bring off the bench, no one shorter than 6'6". So you're talking about like a massive height disparity there, and I would like to see us take advantage of that. Now, I don't know if Shire would actually run this lineup out there because we hadn't seen it much, but Houston, if y'all watched them any this year, their main source of scoring, it'll come from Roberts in the post, but he isn't really a shooting threat. Houston's the number one three-point shooting team percentage-wise in the country. There's 3 guards. They all are snipers, but they're all smaller. So I would like to see Shire go to a bigger lineup maybe. Malik Brown, once he's been hurt, he was hurt throughout the tournament. He hadn't really played. He was the backup center and played like 6-man, 7th-man minutes for us most of the season. But he separated his shoulder. But now he's getting back to full health. I would like to see some Malawatch at the 5, him at the 4, and then if you can put Flagg and Khan at the 2 and 3, and then you put in either Sion or Tyrese out there at the point guard spot. I mean, you're talking about now their 6'3" guard is guarding Cooper Flagg, or their other 6'2" guard is guarding Colin Knipple. I mean, a massive guy. So that's going to create some serious matchup problems for him, and I think that Cooper and Khan move well enough defensively that they could probably guard them on the defensive end. I would like to see some of that because that could maybe force Kelvin Sampson to take one of those guards off the court.
Yeah. Mason, do you have anything? Because I have a full list of stuff.
Yeah. I guess I've watched Duke almost every game through the tournament so far, and I feel like they've shot the ball really well. Have y'all shot that well? Like, I know Proctor one game, he had 7 or 8 threes, and I feel like I know part of that probably comes from, offense creating and getting open looks, but have y'all shot the ball that well all year? Or is that something y'all are kind of hot right now?
Yeah, I would say that we've been pretty hot, but now at the same time, we have shot well. I mean, we've kind of, early in the year, we actually struggled from 3, and, coming into the season, all the Duke fans, I follow a lot of them on Twitter. Everyone collectively thought this is going to be a really good shooting team. All the scrimmages, everyone from all the words from practice, this is going to be a really good shooting team. And we kind of started off the year in a little skid shooting-wise. Of course, we were starting Foster then, too, and he had kind of a little skid. Khan started off slow. Cooper started off slow. But around that Christmas break time, they moved Sion James into the starting lineup.
He should have been starting during our game.
Yeah,
I think he's a stud.
Yeah, I think and you've seen Foster went from playing starter minutes to now he barely comes off the bench. He started to get some minutes back now. But when you look at those players, their shooting as the years gone on has gotten better and better. We steadily moved in. We were at one point, I think, around 60th, 70th in the country 3-point percentage. Now I think we've moved into the top 10. So I'm confident in our shooting. Now, granted, are we going to shoot 60% from the floor against Houston? No, that's not going to happen. It's going to probably be a dirty defensive game. But I have noticed some big strides in our shooting. So I am pretty confident in it. I hope that they can ride the hot streak out for 2 more games, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And
what's no secret?
Let me say one more thing, Dylan. So, as far as the physicality goes, which you brought up, I think I've seen a bunch of sets, that Shire's drawn up on X and things like that. I think he's a really good X's and O's coach. He draws up things to get great looks for his players. But a thing that we saw several times this year with Kentucky is when we face those physical teams, they pushed our offense starting out so far. And I think that's a good point for you. And I don't know, how that will affect y'all, but I think that's something to look out for. If they can force Duke to start farther out, away from the 3-point line instead of starting on the 3-point line, I think that could be very impactful for y'all offensively. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to watch the matchup as far as that goes.
Yeah, both games are going to be great games.
Well, it's no secret who you all have. I mean, everybody in the world, Cooper Flagg. I mean, he's going to be probably the national player of the year. I do want to propose this question to you, and I also want Mason and Colton to debate if it were to be debatable. But I have watched Cooper Flagg, and I've also seen some people bring this up, and it's kind of brought some. I'm very intrigued by it. Do you think that Cooper Flagg is a byproduct of being on a great team? Because if you think about it, everywhere that he's been, he's been on an absolute phenomenal team. I mean, you just look at his high school team, Montenberg Academy. Just look, Derek Queen, the guy from Maryland, Big Ten Freshman of the Year, first team All Big Ten awards, along with other things. Liam McNeely was another one, Big East Freshman of the Year this year, 2025, All Freshman team. Asa Newell, Georgia, he made the SEC All Freshman team. Then Robert White went to Baylor. Then Curtis Gibbons went to LSU. And then, I mean, I'm not going to talk about this year's team as well. But then also, I get to thinking about if I've watched Cooper Flagg, especially in our game, but I mean that was a long time ago. But throughout the season, I don't feel like I see necessarily a lot of times where he creates for himself. Now, am I saying that he is overrated? No, but is Cooper Flagg everything that everybody's making him out to be? Because I think he is, and this is my argument to other people. I don't think he wows you across everything, but I think he's good in everything he does, which ultimately, when you look at the stat sheet, because I know there was one game, I'm like, this dude ain't done nothing. And by the end of the game, he has 20 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, what in the world? What did I miss? So is Cooper Flagg all that, Tyler? Or is people kind of just high horse right now because you are doing so well?
Of course, now the national media train has pushed this man up. They've done the same thing with Zion when he was there. And now I think Cooper is, I think he's going to be a really great player, and I think he's going to be, he has a chance to be our best NBA player we've ever had come out of Duke, in my opinion. Now, I will say, I think that him being on those teams probably has benefited him some. But if you notice, I think it has affected the way he plays because he is a little more passive, and like you said, he kind of goes out there and sometimes it's quiet. He might have 20 points. You might be like, oh, he had 20 points and 5 assists. I didn't even feel like he had the ball that much. But I think that's what might make him great at the next level. Now, whether or not he'll be a number one scoring option, I don't know. I think that he's a great scorer, but he's not really that aggressive right now. And I've heard plenty of interviews from Shire this year, and he's kind of said that. He said, I had to tell, like, this was even recent, the last round. He said, I kind of have to beg Cooper to be aggressive, look for his shot more because he's so, like, not necessarily passive, but he only takes it when he's got it. You know what I mean? He's not going to force up a shot or look to create, for himself with that in mind. He's always looking to make the right basketball play. And that's what I think makes him so good and this team so good because, you look at the other guys we have as well doing the same thing. And I think that he plays basketball the right way. He might not wow you at times, but especially, his shooting's gotten a lot better. He's a great passer, great defender. I think his defense is probably his best attribute. And that's something that a lot of people, overlook. But I think right now he was rated as like a top 5 defender in the country, like on the defensive player ratings. So, he's a great defender. He just is all around solid. There's probably better scorers than him in the draft. There might be better passers, but no one has the complete skill set that he has. And I've never seen a player at Duke with the same kind of skill set.
So I want to ask something interesting you just said there. Mm-hmm. So you said you think he could be the best player, to come out of Duke. Mm-hmm. You think potential-wise in the NBA, he could be better than Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving, those type of guys?
I think that this will be the sign, like the tell of that, is whether or not he learns how to be more aggressive and look for his shot more, be a little more selfish, I guess you should say. Because
that's what I was going to say.
I think you could go place him on the top NBA team. You could go probably place him on the Celtics and he'd slide right in and not cause any issues. You know what I mean? Like he could slide into that starting lineup and be fine. But he would take a back seat. I think it will be good for him if he gets drafted to a place like the Jazz, where they're going to be pushing
he has
him
to be that go-to guy.
Mm-hmm, they're going to be pushing him to try to score and be that number one option. Because if he develops that part of his game more, which he already has a lot of good moves, he does a lot of great things in the mid-range area. Then I'm like, that's a pro move, like that's going to translate. But yeah, I think that he has the potential to be. Now, whether or not he will, I don't know. But I think that he can. I think that he'll end up probably having the most rings. I would get. I'm going to predict that he probably has more rings than the other big player. Because I think that he's one of those players that, maybe after his first contract, he could go to a championship team, and I think he's a perfect piece to slide in on a championship team, just the way he plays. I think he could just fit in anywhere. So, yeah, I like it. I like his game.
Colton, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where do you think this Duke team stacks of all-time teams? Not just Duke. I'm talking about in college basketball. If they were to go on and win the championship.
I think that they're going to be I will say this. Let me ask y'all this because I've never really thought about it. Obviously, we won the national championship with Anthony Davis and them. Do y'all think that team was better than the 2014-2015 team for UK?
No, I don't.
So that's where I'm at with this is I believe that this Duke team reminds me more of the championship team with Anthony Davis as far as built on a few freshmen, Knipple, Malachi, Cooper Flagg, right? The national player of the year, we had Anthony Davis. They got Cooper Flagg. We also had Michael Kidd Gilchrist. They got Con Knipple, right? Like you got those type of things. But then we also threw in Darius Miller. And we also threw in Terrence Jones. And they're throwing in Tyrese Proctor, right? And they're throwing in a couple of these veterans with them. To me, this team is made up of one of those. So I think it would be a top 10 team. I don't know how, like, to me, on paper,
Yeah, that's what I mean on paper because on like the KenPom stats, they're ranked up there with everybody. Like
right. So it'd just be interesting to me because I felt like their 2014-2015 team was maybe the most dominant team of all time. It really was. I mean, you literally could throw two different starting lineups of NBA players and guys that like were dominant. Like you could throw 10 guys out there that were NBA players, and you had what 3 7-footers that were NBA players: Cauley Stein, Anthony Towns, and Dakari Johnson. You threw 3 7-foot NBA players. You had, I mean, Devin Booker was your sixth man. I mean, right? Like to me, that is the most dominant team. Obviously, you didn't win. That's why it got talked about. But if that team finishes the job, like they finished 38-1. Like they had one loss. Obviously, it came at the worst time, but they had one loss in history, like the whole season, and that's what's talked about more. They finished that job at 40-0. Maybe that has to be talked about as the best team of all time.
I think it's undisputable.
Right. Undisputable at 40-0. So I think Duke's somewhere in that top 10. I think they're very right on neck and neck with whatever Anthony Davis team ranks.
I was going to say that. I think that's it's weird you brought that up because I was going to say that too. Like Cooper Flagg and the way he plays at Duke kind of reminds me of Anthony Davis, right? I mean, Anthony Davis didn't wow you with scoring a bunch of points. He just did everything well.
I think he averaged 12 points is
he didn't average a lot.
Right. But that's kind of, I know they play different positions and, different style of players, really. I mean, I guess Cooper plays the forward, but I know that they play different positions and different styles. But that's kind of what it reminds me of when Anthony Davis was in college. He just did everything well, and he still kind of dominated the game while he was doing it. And he wasn't really asked to score when he was in college. But once he went to the NBA, I mean, he's averaging 25 a game and doing his thing. And I think that's a kind of a good comparison, teams and Cooper Flagg to Anthony Davis, just watching their college games.
Yep. Tyler, what do you think? And then we'll come to a close here in a little bit.
For me, I think it's like Colton said, I feel like you can look at teams and, he was talking about how talented and how dominant that Kentucky team was. I think there's a difference when you're ranking, the greatest teams of all time and you're ranking the most, talented, dominant teams because I feel like the championship, it's just like pushes teams up there. Now, like if this Duke team loses, I'm kind of like Colton, like how y'all are over 2015 Kentucky. I think to me, this is the best Duke team I've seen in my lifetime. Just talent wise, the way they play, better than I've seen the 15 Duke championship, the 10 Duke championship. I think that this team's better than both of those teams. And I know y'all are talking about 2015 Kentucky, and I know y'all are going to lean that way. But like me personally, I think it'd be pretty close. Like if these two teams played a game, I think it'd be a toss up, really. But I will say this.
No, it ain't gonna be no toss up.
I think it would be. I think it would be, seriously.
Y'all were doing jumping jacks in 2015 when we lost to Wisconsin. Y'all were like, "Thank God we don't have to play this team."
Look, I wanted Kentucky because y'all had everything to lose. Y'all had everything to lose. I felt like that was perfect way for Coach K to get them up.
And I still don't know how we. I do know how we lost that game, but we'll
Oh,
say
man.
that.
Charlie done brought that up at the end of the podcast. We're going to have to bring him back on, and we're going to have to debate this.
Yeah, I think
All right, I can hear it now. They're going to be like, bring him back on so y'all can debate him, man. Well, before we end, I do want to hear everybody's thoughts on Final Four predictions. Just give me who's going to win, and then we'll close. Mason, let's start with you. Who you got winning in both sides?
Duke and Florida, and then I think Duke takes it off. Unfortunately.
Kobe?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Same thing. I just don't. I think Duke and Florida will be in the championship, and then I just think Duke will have overall probably more scoring than what Florida will.
Sheesh, boys, I'm going Florida and Houston then.
Hey,
I'm
there we go.
coming Houston. They Duke got everything to lose right now. Houston, they coming out swinging. They going. Hey, Houston's going to light it up from three land. What you got, Tyler? What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, like you said, the media is give Houston some free ammo to put on us here with all the talk about Duke. But I think it's, the Final Four is going to be tied. But for me, of course, I'm going to go with Duke. I feel like that we can win it all. If we play our game, I think we can beat any of these teams left. But as far as game predictions, I'd say we beat Houston. And then I feel like that Auburn is going to get, kind of revenge back on Florida for that regular season loss they handed them. And I think Auburn's playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Now, Bruce Pearl keeps trying to claim they're the underdog, which is kind of funny to me because I think that, how can you say a team that great is an underdog? But, whatever he needs to get them motivated. So I think that they win that game. But I think that we would beat Auburn if we played them again. I think we got a lot of good interior defense that we could throw.
Who would you rather see, Auburn or Florida, if you win?
Probably Auburn, because I think we match up better with Auburn as far as, I think we could slow down
match
Bruce.
up better, too. I don't think you match up as good with Florida. Florida's bigs could give y'all some problems, I think.
Yeah.
I do.
Our strength is interior defense, and, when you're looking at Florida, their guards are lethal, so they can light it up from outside if they get hot, especially Walter Clayton. So, I would rather see Auburn, but I think we can beat Florida if we play a good game.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, thanks for hopping on tonight. Obviously, when you say something like that at the end of a segment, we're going to have to definitely bring you back on because I'm ready to debate right now. But unfortunately, we are running out of time.
Yeah.
As
Thanks
always,
for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Tyler, do you want to join us in this? As always, fellas, go Cats.
Oh, no, I'm out on that.
That's a wrap for this episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, be on the lookout for our social media pages and be sure to follow them. We've got plenty more stories, insights, and conversations coming your way. And if you really loved it, make sure to share it with a friend. From the hills to the hollers, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep that Kentucky spirit strong.